Heads up, it's the Roll Jays podcast, the voice of the Creighton basketball fan. With your hosts, Jimmie Allen, Alex Drake, and Casey Matthews. Join the crew and meet CU players, coaches, and a whole lot more. Now, the Roll Jays podcast. Here's Jimmie Allen.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome into the Roll Jays podcast brought to you by Pixel Fire Marketing and Pyramid Contractors. Jimmie Allen, Alex Drake, and Casey Matthews, joined by John Fanta from Fox in the Field of 68. John, thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule to do this with us.
Great to be with you guys. A fun time of year, and what a game on Sunday at Madison Square Garden between Creighton and St. John's, a battle that went down the stretch. You wonder on hypotheticals that I'm sure we'll dive into within the game, but I'll tell you what, to think that we are less than 4 weeks away from Selection Sunday, this season has flown by. Here we go.
That's a great point. Like when you're in it, like for us, we're in this little bubble in Omaha, right? And we're only keeping an eye on the Big East and everything. But you're all around the country. Like, how difficult is it for you to get through this stretch these last 4 weeks when everybody's talking about that fateful Sunday in March?
Well, I think people underappreciate this time of year. And they underappreciate December and January as well, because it's the road. When you are with a team, and you guys have covered Creighton all year, so you can appreciate it. Like, they're a great example of it, of losing a player for the year in Pop Isaacs. First off, you have the high of the Kansas win. And when they win that night, you're thinking, all right, we'll be fine when it comes to the NCAA tournament. Now it's about how good could we really be. Then you lose Pop Isaacs. And I got to be honest, when that injury happened, I'm like, man, Creighton might not make the tournament now, because I just don't know if they have enough firepower. Well, silly me, silly all of us, because Greg McDermott's one of the best coaches in the country and should be on National Coach of the Year radar. I think Bruce Pearl has it locked up, but like if I put a list of 15 to 20 together, Greg McDermott should be on it, because he's done a tremendous job of getting this Creighton team to adapt. But you've had highs and lows. You've had the almost. You go to Marquette early in conference play. It's like, hey, win this game. Now you're off the bubble. You lose. You're like, all right, maybe we're going to live life on the bubble the whole way. Then you go on a crazy 9-game winning streak, and forget about the bubble. They're going to be in the NCAA tournament, and hopefully for their sake, they can get up to that 7 line. You know, I mean, maybe if they win all the way out 6 line, but like you want to avoid the 8-9 game. And I think for them, if you're Creighton right now, they're a terrific example of your question, Jimmy, of the season has waves. I see different teams every day, different mindsets, different coaching styles. That's the fun of it, because once we get to the madness is a blast, but that goes even quicker. And by that time, there's so much happening across the country. It's fun this time of year because you get to really see how a team grows. You know what the coolest thing about it is for me, guys? When I ask a coach in December or January, what's it going to take for you guys to get to your best? And then when I talk to them at the end of February and I say, wow, we discussed that, or hey, you didn't tell me that back in December. That's where I love the inner workings of a program. It's one of the most rewarding parts of the job.
I think what you said there is really important, John, that you can have a plan, and it's the old cliche saying everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth. And so on that note, and you kind of brought up Mac and what a great job he's done this year. In your time in the Big East, like, where does this rank for you for Mac? I know it's not over yet, but we've got you on today, so might as well ask you, like, of his career so far, like, where does this rank for you? Are there any seasons that really stand out that could be better than this one in terms of his coaching job?
Well, I thought the top of the league was really, really strong in 2019-20 when Creighton found a way to win it. And I thought that was an outstanding coaching job by him. He's had others, Casey. There's no question about it. But this has been superb. I mean, I'd be hard-pressed to find one that's better than this coaching job, because I've thought multiple times in their season that they were going to be in a really difficult spot. So this is an excellent example of it. Here's why. If you ask Greg McDermott on November 4th, what's the plan to make it work? And if I said, what happens if that plan doesn't work? He would have used plan B. Then I said, what about plan C? Okay, what about plan D? All right, we'll round it out at plan E. None of the plans, A, B, C, D, or E, would have contained what this has been. This has been a totally different type of formula. Look, the base is there. Creighton has one of the best duos in the country. Stephen Ashworth is top 10 in assists per game. Ryan Kalkbrenner's averaged around 20 points per game in conference play. He has been fantastic defensively. He is as invaluable a piece to a team as any in the country. He really is. He challenges you when you're going through the lane and you're the opponent. If he doesn't block your shot, you're thinking about him blocking your shot. That's the ultimate defensive MVP. So when you have those two, you know you're going to have a shot. The question always was, are they going to have enough supplemental shot making? What's interesting is Ashworth's just picked it up that much more. Maya Neal has really turned it on, and I think Neal, just spending a little bit of time around him, like, he really gets it. He is getting the Creighton system. He's understanding things. Just took him a little bit.
He's bought in, but he's bought in, John. Like I think you can say early in the season, coming from where he came from, again, no knock on Coach Hurley there, but it wasn't as intricate and detailed of an offensive system as he's playing in now. And he really did have to kind of humble himself and realize, I'm not option one, I'm not option two, I'm option three. And that's okay. And when he started doing that, I think this team.
I agree with you. They've ascended. And the other thing is, I think Jackson McAndrew's got a really bright future. Just one day at a time. And you're going to see him, I think, at some point down the stretch here, have a breakout double-figure game again where he really shows what he's capable of. It's an elite coaching job, though, by Greg McDermott. His team does not have a lot of depth, and they don't have a ton of scoring beyond the top two players and top three players with Neal now. But they have found a way to play possession by possession and grind it out and figure out ways to win, especially when they don't turn the ball over. That might be the name of the game to this whole team.
Yeah. John, I'm going to first off apologize here because I think I stole this from you in reference to Dan Hurley. I think I heard you talking probably middle of the way through the season after they went on their skid in Hawaii. And I believe it was you who said in an interview with him, hey, if anybody's earned the right to figure it out before everybody abandons ship, it's the two-time defending national champion, Dan Hurley. I've kind of repurposed that and used it towards Coach McDermott this season, especially after they had that skid early in the year, because it seems like to me this is the third year in a row where they go through a little skid at the end of November, beginning of December, and then come this time of year, we're looking at them geared up for March and competing for a Big East title.
Alex, it's so well said. He's earned the benefit of the doubt. And I think part of it is when you've gone to 3 of the last 4 Sweet 16s, now the fan base is thinking we want a Sweet 16 every year. And I don't blame them. So does Greg McDermott. But Casey knows this well, having been on the bench. Those don't just pop out. They don't just like come on out of the machine like, hey, let me bake some cookies and I'll pop the Sweet 16 out the oven. That takes a lot of work. And I think that, Alex, your point is really well taken. Jimmy, I could see you. I think you want to say something about that.
Yeah, it's almost like you listened to our post-game show last night, because that's essentially almost word for word minus the cookies what Casey said last night about it. It's, and I think that's the takeaway from this. And we were talking a little bit before the cameras came on about the Ryan Kalkbrenner injuries. Like, I think when you are at Creighton, you are UConn, you are a fan of Rick Pitino or a team that he's coached. You have a head coach that's that successful that you forget sometimes it's hard to win in college basketball.
Oh, it's incredibly hard to win in college basketball. Nor alone sustain. A 9-game winning streak is unheard of in this league. It's the Big East. Every game is a battle. The fact that Creighton entered Sunday having won 5 in a row on the road in the league. Now, does the league have some programs that are down? Does Villanova need to evaluate where they're at? Has Creighton been a letdown team a little bit? Xavier has Xavier been a letdown team? Yes. Has Butler faltered? Yes. Has Seton Hall been as bad as they've been in a long time? Yes. So there have been some Providence, another down year. There's a couple of, this has been a 2-year period in the league where you're going to see some changes made, I think, with some other programs.
And that makes me want to ask, because obviously we talked about it already. Next month gets a little more fun, and there's 5 games in between now and then. But once the Big East tournament starts, everybody's got a shot, right? You get a chance to punch your ticket. Is there a team outside of really Creighton, St. John's, and we'll throw UConn and Marquette to that conversation, that you think could go on a run and maybe punch their ticket to March by making a splash in the Big East tournament?
Xavier or Georgetown can can. Now, why can Georgetown do it? If Thomas Sorber is healthy, they can pressure teams defensively.
Yep.
This is a Georgetown team that can guard. Creighton saw it firsthand. And when they get up in you, they get underneath you. They defend like an Ed Cooley team when on. There's a big difference between their on switch and their off switch. But when they're engaged on that end of the floor, everything else falls into place. Why? Because Malik Mack is a really good player who can score in bunches. Undersized? Sure. But he's a guy who can get buckets. Jaden Epps, when healthy, can do that too. The key to the whole operation, though, is Micah Peavy. Micah Peavy reminds me of a Justin Minaya. As a defender, David Duke, a little bit of that type of player defensively. And offensively, he's grown a ton. Ed's playing him differently. So I wouldn't rule out their chances of, when I say make a run, Casey, you and Jimmy and Alex, you know this well, like everything in the Big East tournament, first, if you're stuck playing day one, you can look at it one of two ways. You can look at it as, well, this stinks. Or you can look at it as, hey, let's start this right here, right now. And we're going to have a leg up on everybody playing on Thursday because they will have not played. And every team that enters Thursday and has not played, they take at least a couple of minutes to get their feet under them and get going. It's very rare
100%.
that a higher seed comes out and just boat races somebody. It takes you a few moments. So, to me, if you're the 6'11 this year, you're facing a Seton Hall team or a DePaul team that, frankly, both are vulnerable in their own ways. You got to play your game, get a nice, healthy lead, play some of your bench, and you gear up for the next day. Why could Xavier do it? One, they're going to be desperate.
Mm-hmm.
Xavier, to me, has to win out in the regular season to have a real chance. They have to beat Creighton at home. Can they? Yeah, they can. Why? Dante Maddox is playing better. Fremantle's a really good player, and Comwell went on is dynamic. They're a dangerous team because of their ability to score in a variety of ways. The thing about Xavier is that defensively, they can be real soft at times, and Sean Miller knows it. They got to be engaged on that end of the floor. But I always look at it from like, what teams in conference play have on their best days blown some teams out? And on its best day, Georgetown has actually blown out a couple of teams. And on its best day, Xavier has beaten Marquette at Marquette, and they beat UConn. Can you beat those teams? Also, Casey knows this, Xavier should have beaten St. John's at the Garden.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
They're one of the
I
few.
think the question is of those teams that you're naming, personally, I just don't know that any of those teams can sustain it. That's where I think the issue comes. Like, although, I mean, really, you brought it up, John. You brought Georgetown up. The year where they beat us in the championship, the COVID year, great example, I think, of what you're talking about, where they got hot in the tournament and, you know, they got a lot of confidence that they didn't have going into that tournament, really. But the question is just like, of those teams, do they have enough scoring to sustain that?
Good question.
Right?
I don't think they will.
When you look at Epps and Peavy, though, I mean, they went off for 20 each against Creighton in DC. So, I mean, like, they can't do it, for the case of your point, they can't do it for one night. Can they do it for three? That's a completely different conversation.
But there's also variables. So when Georgetown went on the run, everybody forgets Villanova was all beat up. They were hurt. So Georgetown met them in the quarterfinal, and they were depleted. And then who did Georgetown beat in the semifinals? Seton Hall. They beat Seton Hall. Who was good, but not great.
Sure.
And ended up succumbing to how that Georgetown team did two things. They racked up stops, and they had a red hot Jamarco Pickett and a red hot Blair, Javon Blair.
Javon Blair, yep.
Yeah.
So it takes, for me, this is why Creighton's dangerous. Like, if you ask me today, I would still tell you, I wouldn't be surprised at all if we see a rematch of what we saw yesterday at the Garden in less than 4 weeks in the Big East final. Because you can't, it's so hard to simulate what each of Ashworth and Kalkbrenner do if Kalkbrenner's fully healthy. And you guys know this in a Big East tournament game. That's a game where a McAndrew, right, or a Trout could. I'm not saying that they're scoring 30 points like a Cole Huff in
Yeah.
his team, but I'm saying could have a 16-point game. And you're like, where'd that come from? It's March, man. Things happen. So it's the two most difficult matchup teams right now in this league are St. John's and Creighton. St. John's for how they defend. It's you guys can get into this here. It's unbelievable. I have never seen a team so relentless. At least
especially on inbounds plays. On those inbounds plays, it'll be like it's like their lives depend on it. It's insane.
They guard you the moment you get off the bus, but it's not it's a phrase. It's real. And they limit your offense. They take away what you're really good at offensively, or at least they make it a lot harder than it's supposed to be.
Right.
And I actually want to credit Stephen Ashworth, because sometimes you learn the most about your players in a loss. Like, I love that kid. I already thought he was great. My respect for him went up even more because, Casey, I think you'd have to agree here. He kept them in the game when Kalkbrenner went out.
Again, John, I think you're watching our show. We 100%. We actually got lucky. We had Mac on our post game last night, and I asked him that very question because, and I thought back, John. I'm bringing up bad memories, but I know you know where I'm going. I thought back to Ryan Nemhard at St. John's on the road where he breaks his wrist. We still managed to win that game because we had leadership on that team that could rally us. Now, different scenario, obviously. I mean, Nemhard's super important, but Kalkbrenner is Creighton basketball, and so it's very different. But the way Steven acted and the way he rallied the guys and instilled confidence in Fred King was unbelievable. So I completely agree with you on that, and I'm happy to hear you say that because I think he deserves to hear some of that.
Well, here's the other thing. Steven occasionally joins us on our podcast too, so we're never going to play this back for him because we talk him up enough as is. He doesn't need any extra kudos.
Don't inflate his ego. We get that he's accomplished more than all of us at his age than we all have. So he doesn't need to hear any more praise. You know what? Let's bury. Steven, you're a little undersized.
He's never heard that one.
And you know what? You should take care of some more diapers. Come on, man.
Oh, he's doing. Yeah, you know what? There's nobody more excited than his wife Peyton for these 2 days.
Yep,
because he's home and he can change diapers and do his share today. But.
Oh, and by the way, John, we're snowed in with about 6 inches of snow here in Omaha too, so he's locked in. He ain't going anywhere anyway.
That's something else. That's funny, guys. That's good. I got a good Matt story for you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, let's hear it.
So I was in an all black suit yesterday. I normally am in navy. If you guys ever, or I actually have a light blue, but I don't really wear all black because I think of a funeral service.
Yeah.
But it was a big game. I'm like, I'm gonna go a little fancier today. So I'm in my all black, and Matt comes out and he's got a little smirk, and I could tell he's got something ready to go for me. And I walk up to him and he goes, "What are you heading to a funeral today?" I go, "What?" He goes, "Well, I hope it's not mine."
No,
in terms of his teams, he was saying it's somebody's funeral. And then the conversation wraps. He always will rip me about my Cleveland Browns. He said, "Well, when's your baby due?" Because my wife is pregnant. And
congrats, by the way.
Thank you very much.
We're going to ask at the end, but we'll let you plug that. Go
ahead. I said May 9th, and he said, "Oh, he better look like his mom."
I was going to ask about that, or if he gave you any comments about his shoes, because Mac's sneaker game is always on point as well.
It's good. I had my dress shoes on yesterday. He's a trip, man. He's a I'll tell you what, that guy for being so far away, and I don't get to Omaha as much as I would like to. It feels like every time I see him, the 4 or 5 times I get to see him a year, we just start right where we left off. And I lost my dad last year, and to a heart attack, which was very sad. But Greg texted me every day for about 5, 6, 7 months, and he would text me, "How are you?" He would text me a motivational quote. He would text me a scripture passage. So if people want to know the kind of man Greg McDermott is, any Creighton fan I know is proud to have him as their coach. But look at the person that he is; it's unbelievable. Who does that?
Yeah, and even for a Browns fan, when he's a Steelers fan too. I mean, that's That's a bit of a reach.
I think we should highlight what you said there, John. Every day is. I mean, when you're in this business too, there's a million things you have to think about. And so, and not that you're not on our mind a lot too, John, but for you to be on his mind every day like that's really special. So I appreciate you sharing.
It is special. And I also thought yesterday, he surprised Rick a little bit with when he went off there late in the game on Ryan O'Connell. But I'm okay with that. Greg makes it count when he's fired up on something.
100%.
He's very good about that. In fact, I would say this about both coaches yesterday, whether you like or dislike Pitino. If you watch that game, both coaches, I thought, like in terms of sideline decorum, which has been a huge topic, that was a refreshing game for a college basketball team.
Absolute pros on both sides. I agree.
Especially with how physical it was. But, John, we've kind of talked a lot about this, but maybe help put it into perspective, because we do have a bias, obviously, being Creighton fans. And where do you see Creighton now in just like the national relevance? Like we're a small town, Omaha, but, and a bigger spectrum here of college basketball as a whole. Like, talk to us about where you see us.
Well, I think that 10 years ago, if you asked somebody that question, they'd be like, okay, top 50-ish program, top 60 job, top 50 job, like in the midst of a bunch of other jobs. To me, it's a top 20 to 25 program in America in general. Now, that has a caveat, right? So, like, Indiana would be in there, but they haven't been winning. Louisville would be in there. They haven't been winning until now. Like, UCLA has this rich tradition, but, like, in 2025, do the kids still care to the same degree? I don't know the answer to that question really necessarily.
And it could be a detriment, right? Like when you're walking in with those expectations, but not necessarily the backing behind it.
Well, that's the thing, of course. Creighton has become a top 20, 25 program job, everything in America. Why? Well, here's why. They have the money to, one, pay their coach, two, pay the players. They've got a donor base. They have some deep pockets. They were ahead of the curve on NIL more so than others. They get it. They understand it. So winning is a priority. They operate like a big-time program should operate. And that's a credit to Greg and the program that he's built. It's also a credit to Bruce Rasmussen and what he did at Creighton University.
Absolutely.
It is. And I think that, one thing that I would say about Creighton is when Bruce is done, right, as the athletic director, nobody that was going to take that job, no new regime was ever going to be praised right away because of who you're taking over for. It's like Kyle Neptune with Jay Wright, and Kyle obviously has had some struggles here, but what I see is Greg McDermott and his staff deserve to be appreciated. They deserve to get everything that they would desire. And based on this, is just me as an outsider. And if Creighton people disagree, I'm more than ears. But I thought that the administration at Creighton last year showed that.
Yeah.
With a big extension announcement, essentially a lifetime deal. We're going to take good care, as they should. But there are certain schools that do not do that. They don't operate that way. So
Ed Cooley said as much when he was talking about how appreciative people in Omaha should be of Mac.
Yeah. So to Father Hendrickson and Marcus and the team there and the people that are leadership, like every department, every school, every place is going to have some ups and downs across the board. This goes beyond basketball. It's everywhere. Because Casey worked on a staff. He knows programs have to deal with housing and little things, charter travel and all the intricacies. I'd like to say that in terms of uniformity, I think Creighton, in the Big East, when you look at Creighton, they understand at the end of the day, basketball is a priority. Fan base is elite. Coach is elite. Money's strong. Television brand has become something strong. Creighton's a desired brand. I'll tell you guys this story. I meet with the TV partners of the Big East every year, and I say like, yeah, like get Creighton on Fox or get Creighton on this game or that game, and like they're gonna get you something, and they're getting numbers. This program is now a top 20 to 25 program in everything nationally, and whenever Greg decides that he wants to just go and play golf, because that day is going to come at some point, the job is going to be heavily desired. Oh, by the way, Greg's got a pretty good coaching tree for that.
Yeah, there's going to be 4 people the doorstep day of.
Right.
Hey,
I want a decision to make there for sure.
And we're catching up with John Fanta from Fox in the Field of 68 here on the Roll Jays podcast, brought to you by Pixel Fire Marketing and Pyramid Contractors. John, you brought up the NIL portion of it, and I want to ask you, because you're more on a national base, and I think it's like people's thoughts on it seem based on where the team or program that they're following is benefiting or lack of benefiting from NIL and the transfer portal. Do you think that there's an overall problem with NIL and the transfer portal now, or are you perfectly fine with how wide open it tends to be at this time in college athletics?
Well, it's never going to go away. So you could either say it's a problem, or you could just acknowledge that there is a wide open market on this, and either you adapt or you die. Now, it's interesting because there's certain schools in the Big East that, frankly, were not as well prepared as Creighton was for NIL. Some of those schools are looking hard in the mirror right now and saying either we're going to face reality or we're going to just be in the mud for a long time until we ultimately acknowledge that we've got to do more. So I think what was problematic about the whole thing was the NCAA dragged their feet on it for so long, and then when it finally became a thing, they didn't have anything in place to operate. I would like to see contracts. I just think it would be healthy for everybody involved. And if you have contracts, you have to abide by them. Both sides have to abide by them. Like, one thing that's not getting talked about is that there are certain schools that are promising kids money, and then the money's like not coming all the way through to fruition. There's some real bad signs with this. I want the kids to get taken care of, but it's got to be done with some sort of formation for both sides' benefits. So for me, do I think that there's a problem? I think the problem is the chaos of it. The problem isn't that it's happening. The solution is get real. Like
stop trying to keep it in the shadows.
Yeah, acknowledge that it's pay for play. Acknowledge as the NCAA, like, you still want an office. I get you want your job. Okay, if you're an NCAA officer in Indianapolis, you don't want to lose your job. Okay, fine. Adapt your job. Adapt your job. Be willing to change. But I think it's a lot of, like, look, I got a mother who's she's in her 50s, and she's like, yeah, like I got tasked with this at work. I've never done this before. And we talk about it. I'm like, look, this is the world. This is where it's going. And to her credit,
it's not slowing down. Yeah.
To her credit, she adapts. And it's like either you're willing to or you're not willing to. So in the NIL thing, like, you have to go and spend money to be serious in this sport if you want to be a high major. The mids and the lows, they're going to continue to be where they are. And those teams have talent, and those teams are going to continue to get upsets in the NCAA tournament. Is it what people grew up with? No. But it's what it is now. And I think the sport still has a real place. In fact, I think the sport the last couple of years and in this year is better than what it was like 5 years ago. I really do believe that. I think the quality of our games has grown and shifted for the better. I don't think it's a problem. I think the operationalization of it is an issue, but it shouldn't be the reason why we kill college basketball. It should be, how do we grow off this, and how 3 to 5 years from now does this look like it has actual structure? Because if it can get some actual structure, then I think we can really have some fun with this.
Well, the interesting part of that too, John, is now we're going to have rev sharing, and I think that introduces a whole other wrinkle into, and how do teams approach their NIL, because there's decisions that have to be made in the athletic department on how they're going to find money for other areas. What are some other things they're going to cut back on or add to? So could you ever see the Big East looking at something of just being a basketball only? I know they have a couple football teams, but really kind of maybe adding some more premier basketball programs and just being a premium basketball conference?
I think that they're always looking at possibilities, Casey. I think that they've had discussions with all the schools that could be looking for an option. I think that Gonzaga, up until the most recent news of now their move and kind of resurrecting the Pac-12, I think that they were thinking about it, but the geographical issue there was real. I think that Memphis is a school that could be interesting in this equation. I think that there's a couple of Atlantic 10 schools that are worth conversing with. But you don't expand just so you can say you expanded. And to me, everyone's talking about the numbers game. If you get non-conference results, the numbers game is going to take care of itself. This league hasn't been good enough in November and December. It just has not been to be able to get 6, 7 teams in. They're going to get 4. They might get a 5th. If they get a 5th this year, you should be thanking the committee, and you should be, really, really happy that you found a way to get 5. But for me, like, you're an 11-team league. I agree with thinking about the numbers game to a degree and saying, how do we get to 14? But it's got to make sense. Like Creighton, like Butler, like Xavier made sense at one time. Like Marquette and DePaul made sense in 2005. You have to look hard in the mirror and say, who makes sense from a winning perspective, from a contending for titles perspective? Like, look, Memphis is lost in the American. They're lost. They got to be trying to sell themselves to the Big 12, to the ACC, I'm sure to the Big East. I don't think that they really fit the Big 10, to be honest with you. But I think those 3 conferences, they could fit. And I think if you're the Big East, if it makes sense, like, you're telling me that Penny Hardaway and that brand and that city and that fan base wouldn't add a little juice? You tell me Memphis Creighton wouldn't be interesting? But I think it'd be interesting. You have to look at options. And
Omaha would travel too.
And yeah, you have to just look at options and see what solutions there are. I think that these conversations are going to continue. And I do think the Big East is always thinking about, how do we continue to make basketball number one? And in what ways do we do that? Right now, as much as they're looking on the outside at different options, you also have to look internally and say, how do we better schedule? How do we better set ourselves up to get more than half our league in the NCAA tournament?
That's awesome. John, earlier
Remember, Alex, no conference challenges next year for the Big East.
Yeah.
Big 12 done. Gavitt games are done. So the league's going to tell their teams, and the league's going to try to be helpful. The league will try to set up some home and homes with as many teams as that are willing to have them. The league will help with that. But if you're in this league, I'm not worried about Creighton with this, but like, you can't schedule 10 quad 4 games.
Right.
There's no benefit to it. There's no benefit to it. And then what? Play 2 quad 1 games? Oh yeah, we went 0-2 in those. What good did you just do? Play 5 quad 1 games. Win 2 of them.
Yeah,
and then go 11-9 in the conference. Guess what's going to happen? You're going to get in. Whereas Xavier could go 12-8 in this league and miss the tournament. Play people. Don't be afraid to play them. Michigan played 2 quad 4 games. Everyone's like, they turn the ball over a lot. They're vulnerable with the turnovers. I don't know if I trust their guards. Were they in the top 6 team reveal on Saturday? Arizona started the year 4-5. Looked like crap. They got ripped apart. Were they in the top 6 team reveal on Saturday? Yep. Yeah, because they just played a bunch of people. They lost some games. And they're like, we'll be ready for the Big 12. Play people, for the love of God. If you're scheduling cupcakes, you are hurting yourself.
That's a great quote, John. For the love of God, if you're scheduling cupcakes, you're hurting yourself. We're gonna take that. I love it. But you're right on the money. I mean, I do think, what's one thing I think having Coach Murfield here. Coach Murph's been in the game a long time. Knows scheduling inside and out. I think he does a fantastic job with Creighton scheduling, and I don't think you can ever look at our schedule and say, yeah, they didn't play anybody. They don't deserve it. And I think a lot of credit has to go to Coach Murph and obviously Mac, making the final call there. So great point.
Hey, John, you were talking earlier about Creighton looking at the 7-8 line potentially, maybe a little bit better. How much of that can be affected come conference tournament play from some of these smaller leagues that are, 1-2 bid league, but all of a sudden 8-win Hampton team goes on a run and wins their conference tournament?
Yeah, the bid stealers are real. I mean, with a Creighton, like you're asking, would their seed get affected by something like that?
Correct.
Their seed's not going to get affected. It would, like a Xavier would get impacted if they're just barely in. That could knock them out. I mean, Seton Hall, they really got screwed last year. They were in the field, and then you had a record number of bid stealers. I mean, you think about it, we had 5 bid stealers last year, and I think Seton Hall going into it was like, in the last 4 in, they were like healthily in still, like not third or fourth.
Right.
They were second. And then you have first. Of the last 4 in, they were like the top team in that last 4 in. So they were the healthiest. Then you had 5 bid stealers and they get left out, by 2 spots. I mean, that is a gut punch right there. You almost wonder, like, so Alex, to answer your question, it doesn't impact Creighton's seed. It impacts those teams that are directly on the bubble. I mean, unless there's a couple of anomalies, there always are on a bracket. Like there's some weird things that happen with the committee. And
so you're not thinking Creighton can go from like a 7 to an 8 based off of a bid stealer?
No, I don't think so. No.
I would think it would almost be, Alex, the opposite.
Yeah.
Is that we could move up a spot if
because of a bid stealer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I think Creighton, the next couple of weeks are going to be huge for them. I mean, I would want to avoid the 8-9 game because you don't want to play Auburn or Alabama or Duke.
Or anybody at the top of the SEC at this point.
Anybody at the top of the SEC. So if I'm Creighton, I'd want to try to get up to the 6. I think they're going to be a 7 seed on Selection Sunday. I think that's what they'll be. And I think the 10 line, I mean, like let's just do the exercise here for a moment. Right now on Mike DeCourcy's 10 line, he's got West Virginia, Nebraska, Vanderbilt, and Ohio State. Creighton's better than all those teams. And so then they would go into a round 2, and we'll see what happens. It's a tournament, man. You're going to play somebody good.
Eventually, yeah. Hey, John, I want to hit on something because we talked about it a minute ago with Jackson McAndrew and him being a true freshman, and then talking about the development of Stephen Ashworth and Ryan Kalkbrenner coming back for what feels like year number 67 for both of those guys. When you look at the way teams are being built throughout the country, obviously philosophy matters, head coach matters. To your point, NIL collectives matter. Do you think it is more valuable today to get a McDonald's All-American or to get a guy that's been productive for 3 years at a school previously?
Oh, the latter. The latter, totally. I'm recruiting the portal. I'm not going and getting the McDonald's All-American. Rarely, seldom will help me in his first season. Sure. Some of them do. Cooper Flagg, Liam McNeely. Okay, that's different.
There's only 2 of them for a reason, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, no offense, but Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey, it hasn't worked. It just hasn't. And the fact is, Rutgers gave all their money to those kids, and look how it worked out for them.
That's actually kind of why I was asking, if I'm being honest.
No, you got to get experience. You got to get a Jemiah Neal. You got to go get an Isaac Trout. You got to go get an experienced, grizzled vet who knows how to play the game and knows how to win. I mean, that's what you need to look at, and that's what I'm in favor of.
So, John, I kind of want to build off of that. When you're recruiting the portal, are you thinking that you're recruiting a guy who's already played 3 years, or are you looking for somebody that has 3 years of eligibility? How are you playing that game?
I'd love to get a multi-year guy. So if I can get a guy who's played 2 years and has shown me enough sample size and I know I've got the money, I'd love to have him for 2 or 3. If you can get the guy who was a stud freshman and you can keep him for 3 years, amazing. Yep. But I don't think there's any more valuable team right now, or any more valuable program than the one who can rack up as the second school for a transfer that's talented. If you have money and you can be school 2, you're in the most valuable position. You don't love being school 1, because if you're going to keep the kid, you're probably going to have to go through some shortcomings or some lack of playing time that produces some phone calls from parents that then Are they going to leave? You have the pressure of that, the stress of that, of dealing with them, of maybe losing a game because you had to sacrifice to make sure you play the minutes. Like, that's a balance that a coach has to do. Whereas you could say, hey, we're going to be school 2 for you. I can guarantee you're going to end your career here. We love your skill set. We're going to pay you. We're going to develop you. You want to be a pro? We'll get you there by year 3 or 4. Let's get you in here. Our program wins. To me, you want to be the second school that can get the talented kid.
Yeah. I think you made a great point too now, John, it's there is such a shift for such a long time on like facilities, and those are such big selling points. And not that they don't matter, but it's how much can you pay me? And then do you win? And those two things I think are huge. And on that note, we're talking about winning and talking about the tournament. We'll just kind of switch gears just to the Big East tournament for just a second. And can you talk? I know you're going to get passionate here. Talk about the Big East tournament and why the Big East tournament is as special as it is. Like, there's a lot of people that never get a chance to go. They watch it on TV, and it's great. But being in that arena during those days, can you just walk us through that? Because I don't know. I know I'm partial, but I just feel like it's the best. And I want to hear it from somebody who's really soaked it all in.
The vibe of it is unmatched. It's right around the start of the spring weather in New York City. And so on the outside, everybody's just budding with energy. That energy just funnels into Madison Square Garden. It is off the walls in there. If the walls could talk, the stories they would tell. The roar of the crowd is incredible. I mean, I have been sitting there courtside, and we come out of a media timeout in like an 8-point game with 8 minutes to go. And both fan bases are going bonkers nuts about the game. It is special. The legends through the years, from Kemba to Jerry Mack to Mullen to Pearl to Ewing to Allen versus Allen to Calhoun to Boeheim to Pitino to Jay Wright to Greg McDermott going on runs. There is nothing like the Big East tournament. There is nothing like Saturday night, and you get to step on that stage and hoist a trophy, and you are the headline in New York. The Empire State Building is lit up in your school colors. I've seen the players out at a watering hole across the way and celebrating a championship in Manhattan. And I won't name the players, but I've seen it. And to me, it is the mom and pop shop of a conference tournament. If you're a media member, it's a dream to cover. The access is incredible, guys. I mean, locker rooms are open. You get full access to every coach, every player that you'd like. You get treated pretty well, and you get to spend. I love waking up on Thursday morning. I stay right around the corner from the Garden throughout the week. And I get up, I wake up around like 6:45. I do a couple of hits very, very early in the morning, go back, get dressed, and about 9 a.m., 9:30, I walk over. And when you walk out of the hotel and you go out in the street and you see almost every school in the league represented in some way, shape, or form outside, just walking around, hitting Starbucks, getting a breakfast sandwich, you're just like, this is it, man. Like, it's game on, intense, every possession, playoff games that are high intensity, and the winner gets to stick it to the 10 others and say, I was the best man on the block. I'll see you in Ponte Vedra for the spring meetings, and you will pay for my drink. That's the Big East tournament. It is non-stop. And for those who disagree, you're out of your mind. And 2, I'm telling you right now, there's no conference tournament that has a day 1 like this one. You're like, oh, day 1, 6-11, 7-10, 8-9. These aren't very good. No. Every game is good. They're all like, you're just like, just throw the ball up and let's play the feud. I'm watching the two teams. I'm like, you know what? Give me Xavier, give me DePaul. Let's play the feud. And here we go. Like, these two, It doesn't matter who's playing on that floor. The Big East tournament brings the best out of a player. It does. It gets you to be at your best because you're on Broadway and you better be ready to show.
Speaking of the ball being tipped, I have a question going from one passion to another. Is it time?
Plugging in my laptop as you're asking. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry, we're John. We're gonna wrap here, but is it time to retire one shining moment? I know it's a staple of March, but the song is a little outdated. Listen.
Jimmy, you're gonna anything we have built up here with people watching this, they're all logging off now.
I think it's time to put it to rest. I'm done with one shining moment. I've had enough of it. And
Why?
I get the moment. I get that it's nostalgia. The song is terrible. Can we?
I walk around my house singing it, Jimmy. This is
not stand this song.
I might go listen to it right now. I love it.
I just feel like we as a society could do better than one shining moment.
I like
it, course, John.
I like it, man.
Yeah.
All is tipped, and there you are. You're running for your life.
John, unfortunately, I think you're making my point for me.
This is great. This is fantastic.
I love one.
All right, so I guess I'm on an island on this one.
You are on an island by yourself, and nobody's throwing you a raft, pal.
Okay. All right.
John, let's go. Let's go back. Let's get away from this. We're going to pretend this didn't happen, okay? And we'll let you get out of here. I'm going to give you a two-parter, and they're kind of not related, but this is how I roll. Tell me how you see the Big East tournament playing out. I know we got a ways to go. It's still got a lot of games to play, but just give me what you would predict right now, and then more personal fun here. When you do come to Omaha, where's your favorite spot? I know you like to get out and check out the town. Where's your favorite spot when you come to Omaha? And we'll let you go.
Well, look, I mean, you and I went to the Drover. I had a New Year's Eve. That was fantastic. Tremendous dinner. I loved it. I had a great time. Very, very good. I like Radio Cafe for breakfast. It's been a long time since I've been, but I thought that what's the name of it again?
Lisa's.
Big fan of Lisa's.
Great pancakes.
Yeah, excellent food. I mean, very, very good. Old Matt. I've had dinners at Upstream. I liked it. Upstream's still around, right?
Yeah.
Upstream, it's a staple. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, very good food. I've covered a bunch of them. I mean, Spencer's I really enjoyed when I went. I thought it was very good. I've done a dinner at 801. It was a little too fancy for my liking, to be honest with you. But I'm a Drover guy. I'm an Old Mac guy. I have been to Cal Taco for lunch. Yes, Guy Fieri going there makes me like it.
Marketing works.
It's some people are like, it's not my favorite. I'm like, are you kidding? It's a deep fried taco shell. Like, get out of here. It's really good. And then I'm gonna sound like a, I don't know what I'm gonna sound like here. And some people have been like, well, that's no. Let me tell you something right now. I have housed some cheese sticks from Varsity with Rob Anderson for many, many years, and I will continue to do so. And it's a no judgment zone. I don't care.
Yeah, this is a judgment-free zone. We will not hold any of this against you.
Listen, I like to eat. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out. I am who I am, and I enjoy a good night out. So Omaha is a good place for that. How do I see the Big East tournament go? I think we're going to see something chaotic happen. I just think there is a bid stealer that's going to emerge. I don't know if they can win it, but I think somebody is going to – there's going to definitely be a semifinal team. Maybe I'll eat my words, and maybe it'll just be a clear-cut top four. It'll be St. John's and UConn. And Marquette Creighton. But my gut just says my gut says we're going to see a Marquette St. John's potential final. Not that that's a bad thing for Creighton, but Marquette has really played well in the tournament. And if we don't see that, I think we're going to see something a little bit unique happen. If Sorber is healthy, I can't take my eyes off of Georgetown if they played in the level they're capable of getting to the semis and having a shot. I'm not saying they're doing it. I just think something wacky is going to happen this year.
Yeah. Interesting.
I do. I don't know what, but you're going to have some real desperate dogs, man. You got desperate teams that have to win that quarterfinal game. There's a couple of people fighting for their jobs. So,
and you can never count out a Sean Miller coach team either, in my opinion.
No, you can't. And don't count out Eric Dixon. You know, what happens if Eric Dixon shows up and says, I'm not losing this week. Yeah. I am going to find a way. And I don't know. I mean, we've seen it before. We have seen a coach or a program on the cusp of losing everything. And look at Kevin Keats last year. You just never know what can happen in a week like that.
Well, I think our loss to Georgetown in the championship it couldn't be a better example. So
yeah, it extended things for Patrick Ewing. It really did.
Yep.
Well, John, we appreciate your time today, and thank you so much for doing this. This has been the Roll Jays podcast, brought to you by Pixel Fire Marketing and Pyramid Contractors. You can donate to Creighton's NIL Collective, the Bird Club, by scanning the QR code in the top right corner of your screen. All proceeds will benefit your favorite athletes at Creighton University, as well as benefit this podcast. That's John Fanta from Fox Sports and the Field of 68. Follow him and the Field of 68 on social media. John, we'd love to do this again in the future. We appreciate your time.
Anytime, guys. Thanks so much for having me.
We'll be back. We'll be back next week. We're going to take a week off with the team. We're going to give you guys a little bit of rest. We'll be back with Stephen Ashworth on Monday, hopefully breaking down a win next Sunday. Thanks for watching the Roll Jays podcast.